Did the official get the call correct, yes or no? And this is a small association. I was stationed in Japan at the time, and there's like 4 of us in there. And I'm taking this 20-question test. Yes, yes, no, 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 thinking I'm acing this test. I missed 15 out of 20 questions. What? Somebody can go up for a lay-in and catch their own air ball? No, no, that's travel. No, it's not. Once you release the ball on a try, I learned that there's no more team control and that anybody can get that air ball, including the guy who shot it. That's when I realized I was the jerk in the stands that we're all going to hear, who think they know the rules, but they really don't. And that's what gives you confidence as an official, is knowing I know the rule, I can apply it correctly. I could give a rat's ass what you're saying to me, player, coach, or fan. So anyway, I love talking about the rules. So Steve had a presentation all ready to go, and let me see if I can find it on this list of stuff that I have going. Where is there it is. All right. So we'll go up to the beginning up here, and I will do this guy. All right, so we're going to talk about Rule 4, which is the definitions, Rule 1, which is the court and equipment, and Rule 2, which is the officials and our duties. By the way, how many of you guys have your rule books? Does everybody have rule books and stuff? Nobody?
Yes.
I have one.
How many of them have you them with you sitting there at the computer right now?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep, I do.
Yep.
Great answers. You shouldn't go into a gym or a referee meeting without having those books with you, because even Mike Lloyd sometimes will say something that somebody will look up for me and say, no, Mike, you got it wrong. Yay. I love that kind of stuff. That's how we get better, is by actually opening up the book and looking at it. Steve had these things in here. Rule knowledge equals better play calling. You can't make correct calls without knowing the rules. And you can read this quote. I'm not sure where this came from, but there is some truth to it. And absolutely, without rules and without officials to apply those rules, the games are chaos. Trust me, any of you guys who've ever played lunchtime military basketball, it is chaos. You spend most of your time arguing about calls as opposed to playing basketball. All right, and that's part of our duty, is having that rules knowledge to ensure fair and competitive contest. Always remember, equal does not mean fair. Impossible to actually call play calls without knowing what the rule is, without what is legal. All right, so we're gonna go through the top 10 lists. I think there's 48 or 49 definitions in Rule 4, and a lot of these rules will refer back to definitions. The first one is ball location. If ball in contact with the player or court is in back court, if either player or ball is in back court. The only time the 3 points come into factor of somebody getting front court status is when they are dribbling the ball. If they're dribbling the ball, then both feet and the ball all have to be in the front court. Anything that's touching the back court is still back court status for the ball handler. And the ball still has back court status, so you keep the 10 count going. And then a ball in flight, it retains the same location as when it was last contacted a player or the court. And then it talks about the 3 times when the ball's at the disposal of a player, controlled by the thrower or free thrower when the ball is handed or bounced to them, or placed on the floor at the throw-in spot. And not that it's happened in 33 years, but you could also place it on the floor for a free throw shooter if they really made you mad. But once they come in, they violated. So no reason to do that. Any question about ball location? Oh, and the last one's the available to the player after a made goal when we begins the throw in count. As soon as the ball goes through the hoop, we don't start our throw in count. We're going to give that player time to get the ball, get out of bounds, turn, and start his throw, and that's when we start to count. What's important about that you'll learn later is up until I start the count, the ball is dead. After a made basket, ball is dead until you start the throw in count.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question. If somebody's driven the ball from the backcourt, and maybe you'll touch on this, but passes it, and the player that's going to receive the ball jumps and is in the air, but goes from front court to back court. Mm-hmm. Is that over and back because they're established in the front court?
Correct. Their last location was considered front court. So when they catch that ball in the air, having jumped from the front court, they have front court status. Even if they're across the division line in the air, it's where they last touched. So okay. Once he catches the ball, right, he's got front court status, lands in the back court. That's a classic backcourt violation.
And if their toes on the line, the midcourt line, and they jump and catch the same pass, in that case, they would be considered in the backcourt because both feet aren't in the front court?
No, because they had something touching in the backcourt.
Okay.
The division line, that's the trick question. Which is bigger, the front court or the backcourt? The backcourt's bigger because the division line is part of the backcourt.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, so if he touched the division line before he jumped, then he'd be okay. And this is showing, the pictogram here is showing a player dribbling from the backcourt to the front court. She's got 1 foot in the ball, has been dribbled in the front court, but she still has a foot in the backcourt. And the next pictogram shows you that she went back into the backcourt and it's all legal. That's a legal play. All right. Any other questions about ball location? The next thing we need to know is control. We have player and team control. Player control is when a player is holding or dribbling the ball. Sounds pretty easy, right? Team control is when a player of that team has control. There's still team control even when the ball's being passed between teammates. Even during an interrupted dribble and that ball's rolling around on the floor, there's still team control. And there's team control at the disposal for the throw-in, but the team control in that case is only for foul purposes only. And you'll find out later why. And team control ends when a person attempts to try and the ball has left their hand, it's in flight. When an opponent secures control, because now they're the new team in control, ball becomes dead, as in a made basket or a whistle for a violation or a foul. Oh, I didn't want to do that. The biggest thing I tell people about team control is there's 3 times when there's no team control. There's no team control on the jump ball. There's no team control on a try. And there's no, oh my gosh, these senior moments just kick my rear end sometimes. Oh, and no team control on a dead ball. Jeez Louise. So those are the only 3 times when there isn't a team control: on the jump ball, on the try, and on a dead ball. Any other time, no matter what that ball's doing, there is a team considered in control. And that's very important to remember, because if you have a foul on that team in control, we're not shooting free throws. So it's very important to remember who's in control.
So Mike,
Yes.
Neil.
Hey, Neil.
So, depending on what game I'm watching, I'll see a lot of loose balls, and I'll see two players, going to get the ball aggressively. And very oftentimes I'll hear a foul being called, and I wonder, I ask myself, why was there a foul there if the ball is loose, no one has possession? Yes, there was contact, but nobody has the ball, nobody's in control. Is there some nuance there that is the reason for that?
Yeah, and they'll talk about that more later, but part of it is the old equally favorable positions. The ball's loose and I'm reaching down to get it and somebody dives in and takes me out. That's a pretty obvious one there.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the one where both of them are diving at it very equally and they both collide and they bounce off, that's one where you don't usually see a whistle if they're both going after it equally. The official's judgment is everything in between those, because you want to make sure that somebody's not, taking somebody out, diving under somebody or diving on top, and it's just all part of refereeing plays and making those kinds of decisions based on the rules that you get taught as an apprentice.
Yeah. Go ahead, Isley.
How do you tell the difference between a jump ball and like a foul? From what Neil was describing.
Oh, you mean like a held ball?
Kind of, yeah.
Well, because a jump ball is the only thing is what we do to begin the game. Any other time that two players grab a hold of the ball at the same time, for instance, that's they call that the held ball. And right, you have to look, did the guy have to grab the person's arm to get to the ball? Did they have to bear hug him to get their hands around to the ball? You have to look for, what you would consider illegal contact in order to try to get to the ball. Just because the ball's on the floor does not mean it's a free for all and you can do whatever you want to get to that ball.
Despite what coaches sometimes coach, where they're all screaming, "Get on the floor,"
right?
Which they really mean gets on the other player. Right. So you can
dive
on the floor for the ball. You can make contact with the floor. You can't be diving on top of the other player in order to get to the ball.
Exactly. Foul 419. Get to know and love rule 419, because we have a whole bunch of different fouls in there, and it's very important to understand and know the differences between them. Personal foul. So as you see, illegal is the word that's underlined there. Basketball is a contact sport. There's a lot of contact. There's what they call incidental contact versus what we call illegal contact. Fouls are when we deem the contact as illegal, and the personal foul happens when the ball is live, or if it's by an airborne shooter when they've made the basket and then they crash somebody out. They would still consider that a personal foul. You have common fouls. You have intentional fouls where they're, did you go into depth in these at all, Steve? Okay. So the intentional foul has some parameters to it. It's stuff that's done at...
Click the next.
Okay, you're right. I did see this earlier. They are neutralize the opponent's obvious advantageous position, as if somebody's gotten a big steal and the person just reaches up, grabs them by the shirts and pulls them back. That would be neutralizing an obvious advantageous position. The hack a shack, they're just trying to hack somebody away from the ball because they know they can't shoot free throws and is clearly not involved in the play. Contact that's not a legitimate attempt to play the player or ball, just designed, and it's designed to stop the clock. Again, where they walk up behind somebody and they just pat them on the back, or they grab a shirt or anything like that, where they're just trying to get the clock stopped. And we as officials aren't at best at enforcing this kind of stuff, just so you know, but we need to be better. And then excessive contact, just because they're playing the ball doesn't mean that they can have a free-for-all and take the guy through the arms, to the head, through the shoulders, and onto the floor, and then give him the big kind of deal, right? Even though even if they hit the ball first, again, doesn't mean that they have the right to follow through and take somebody's head, arms, and body out.
So that's the word that you know, when you're watching the pro game, you hear them always talking about flagrant ones and flagrant twos in college as well. You know, that first flagrant one that you're hearing them talk about on television is really the high school intentional foul.
Right, because as you're going to learn in high school, when you say the word flagrant, you're disqualifying or ejecting somebody. In the college and the NBA, that is not so. But in high school, if you say somebody, I'm calling a flagrant foul on that, you're telling them you are disqualifying or ejecting them. Very important to know that nuance.
Mike, what's the difference between disqualified and ejected?
We disqualify players, we eject adults. Players, when we disqualify them, we put them on the bench. They stay on the bench. Unless if it's really bad, then they have to go to the locker room with an adult. But if it's an adult bench personnel, they need to leave. Out of sight, out of sign immediately. The flagrants can be either personal or technical fouls. They're violent and even it says excessive. A non-contact foul for unacceptable behavior, you know, like taunting, dropping the big MF bomb on somebody. You could eject them for that or disqualify them. The technical foul is a foul by a non-player or a non-contact foul by a player. Again, a possible taunting. Intentional or flagrant foul while the ball is dead. So after the ball goes through the basket, the ball is dead, and B1 didn't like what A1 did to them, so they shove A1 to the ground, and because the ball is dead, that contact is now considered a technical foul. And we give direct technical fouls to head coach. And then if we have a technical foul on the bench or on a particular bench personnel, it is also an indirect to the head coach. Very important to know the difference between direct to the head coach and indirect, because a coach can get only 2 direct technical fouls and they're ejected, or a total of 3 technical fouls, either, you know, 1 direct, 1 indirect, and then if they get a 3rd one of either, they're done as well. They blew a situation last night, I understand, where they gave a coach a direct technical foul, and then later on they gave a bench a technical foul, and they made the coach leave. Not proper adjudication. Then we have our player control fouls. They're committed by a player in control of the ball or an airborne shooter who's released the ball on a try. And team control is committed by a player of the team in control. Usually it's like an illegal screen or something like that.
But it does go back to the previous definition of knowing when a thing is when the ball is in team control and when it's not. So these things start tying into each other.
Right, because this 3rd bullet here is what really is the kicker. When you have a player control foul or a team control foul, we're not shooting free throws. So that's why it sometimes is important when you have that loose ball and you have a foul, you need to remember, okay, so who was the team last in control before that ball started rolling around on the floor? Because if it's the team that was in control who pushes a player to get the ball, it's still a team control foul, even though the ball was rolling loose, and we're not going to shoot free throws. Any questions about those? And then all personal and technical fouls count toward the team fouls to reach bonus free throws. The only one that doesn't count is the indirect to the head coach, but that's because they've already given a direct technical for something, technical for the bench. So they've already added that. We're not going to double wham them for that. Guarding, very important one as well. If you don't know the definition of guarding, you'll never be able to get block charge calls right. Closely guarded is 6 feet or less, and 6 feet is measured closest foot to closest foot. You know, he might be 8 feet back and he's sticking his hand out. Well, yeah, his hand might be within 6 feet, but his feet are 8 feet back, so you don't have closely guarded. It's foot to foot.
And you'll do this out on the floor when we're doing the mechanics session, but 6 feet is the distance between the free throw line and the edge of the circle.
Mike, I'm sorry to go back for just a second to the team control or player control foul. So on a player control foul, so the player is dribbling the ball, he loses control of the ball, and in an effort to retrieve the ball, he fouls the defender. Mm-hmm. And that team both teams are in the one-on-one.
Right.
Does the defender's team, is there a one-on-one for that player now or not?
No, because it's a team control foul.
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay.
Right. So if that team is the one who fouls, then we're not going to shoot free throws. But if the defender fouls the team that was in control, then we'd have the bonus free throws.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, and obtaining legal guarding position, or as you might hear a lot, LGP. Both feet touching the player court and inbounds, right, because the playing court is inbounds. Front of the torso facing your opponent. It's all it takes to establish legal guarding position. To maintain it, your feet be on the playing court or in the air, but they can't be on the sideline or out of bounds. You don't no longer need to face the opponent in case you're going to get creamed. You can move sideways or backwards. You just cannot move forward or obliquely, which is, diagonally backwards. You just can't move forward into the player. And this is a big one. You can raise your hands and jump within the vertical plane. And even though I'm up in the air and I'm like this and somebody runs into me, I'm legal, so the foul shouldn't be on me. And then you can turn to duck or absorb contact. You just can't turn into the contact.
So that whole definition, the big money call, it seems to be, is block charge calls, right? Everybody gets pumped up about it. People scream. Half the gym hates you. The other half loves you. The only way you're able to make that block charge call is A, see it, and B, know whether that person is in legal guarding position. So that definition right there is extremely important to being able to have a clue as to whether or not you're getting block charge calls right.
Yeah, and you're going to hear terms like referee the defense, which is just all part of knowing this, because you have to know why you're refereeing the defense. Well, I'm refereeing the defense because I need to know if they're in legal guarding position.
Sorry, Dominic here. I have a quick question about that. When a player jumps vertically, arms have to stay in the vertical plane too, right?
Correct. So they can't be out here like this.
Okay.
This is, well, you probably can't see. This is perfectly straight and very legal. This is very illegal. Everything else starts coming into the judgment, right around in here. This is where we start. Are they still within their vertical plane kind of deal? You know, it's all that kind of judgment stuff. You know, anytime they're out like this far, I mean, that's pretty easy. They're not in a very vertical plane, but I'm pretty vertical here, even though my hands might be a little bit in front of my face.
And what's causing the arms to come down? So if the contact by the offensive player is causing that arm to come down because the body's contracting, then that wouldn't be a foul either. But
right, you're trying to judge if they're coming down and things of that nature, as well as did they start off legal? Like I said, if they're out here, they're not legal. If they're up here, very legal.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so guarding an opponent with the ball or not moving. No time or distance required to obtain LGP. That's a very huge concept right there. If I get my both feet down and facing that opponent, torso facing that opponent, just a millisecond before they crash into me, I'm legal. The foul can't be on me. But everybody's watching the offensive guy and they don't see the defense get there in time. So they always think that that's a block. I think we call blocks more often than we should. I think if we did a better job of understanding LGP and seeing them get there, that we would probably have a lot more charges. And then if the opponent is airborne, the defender must have established or obtained LGP before the opponent left the ground. And then guarding a moving opponent without the ball, now time and distance are required to obtain LGP. The distance is no more than 2 steps. The time, they don't have a 1 second, half a second, 3/10 of a second. It's just you as a basketball official. Did they give them time to avoid that contact? And if I gave them 3 steps to avoid it, then it's obviously they had LGP. If they gave them 1 step and crash, it might not be LGP. And same way with the opponent with the ball, they have to obtain LGP before the opponent leaves the floor. So when they have the ball or not moving, no time and distance is required. When the opponent is moving or without the ball, then we have time and distance requirements. These usually happen on the screening and things like that going on. Clips.
if you want to pull that off.
Let me see. I think I have to unshare to pull them off. I have the web open. Hold on a second. So stop this share. Then share again.
Right, with the L.
Where is
with the VLC? Yeah.
Where is my Safari? There we go. It's not playing, Stephen. Well, they played earlier for me.
Exactly. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Do you want to try to play them?
Why don't you keep going and maybe we'll do them at the end and I'll try to get them queued up while we're talking.
Okay. That is odd. I can't even play them. Okay. All right, and then 424 is the hands and arms, legal and illegal use of them. It is not legal to, I mean, this all kind of makes sense. Use your arms, hips, shoulders, force your way through
19.
screen. Whoops. Use hands on an opponent that inhibits freedom of movement. Freedom of movement's been a big issue. That's where all this hand checking and stuff like that comes into play, because it is felt that it inhibits the freedom of movement. Extend arms fully or partially other than vertical, such that freedom of movement hindered when contact with the arm occurs. So a classic one to me for this one is the defenders got their arms up like this, and the offensive person's trying to come around over here on this arm, and they're using this arm and keeping them from moving around. You're not vertical in that case, you're out extended, as an example. And then swing arms and elbows excessively. If you swing your elbows excessively and make no contact, it can be a violation. If you make contact, it's a foul. And excessive is when you're twisting at the torso. If you're pivoting and everything's staying around, and staying together, that's not considered swinging your elbows. Twisting at the torso like this, that's considered swinging your elbows. And then this is the hand checking definition, basically, of what they want us to call when this happens. Putting two hands on the ball handler, dribbler, BHD, as you see there. Place the extended forearm on the ball handler, dribbler. Keep a stayed hand on the ball handler, dribbler, your hands right up there on the hip as they take, 1, 2, 3 steps, and your hand's still on them. That should always be a hand check. And then do what they call the hot stove, where they're touching them more than once, pestering them. Rebounding, we judge a lot of rebounding. They miss a lot of shots out there. So it's important to understand the concept of rebounding and rebounding position. And then to obtain legal rebounding position, the player may not displace, charge, or push an opponent. The shove in the back, the butt in the belly and backing them out 4 feet. Oh, that's boxing out. No, it's not boxing out. You're displacing them. Boxing out is getting your butt in their belly and holding them there. Big difference.
So you got a question?
Yeah. I didn't catch the last sentence on, not the last slide, but the slide before that.
That one?
Just one more before that, I think. Yeah, this one.
The swinging arms and elbows.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Isley, this stuff is all going to be up on the website. So, you're going to be able to review it without necessarily having to take notes, although I appreciate you doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, and if I'm going too fast, say slow down, Mike. I love talking about it, and stuff just, flows. All right, extend shoulders, hips, knees, or arms other than vertically to hinder the freedom of movement of an opponent. The one you see a lot in rebounding is you get the knee in the person's rear end and they're lifting them up and out. And then bending body abnormally to hold or displace an opponent. Again, that's that bent over and rooting them out with their rear end. And then violate verticality. One thing you'll hear is opponents jumping A to B. If somebody's jumping A to B, they don't have verticality. And then while we talked about legal guarding position, there's this other concept that comes that every player is entitled to a spot on the playing court, provided player gets there first without illegal contact. Screens. To set a legal screen, they can face any direction. Time and distance relevant, especially if the player's moving, right? We saw earlier where if the player's not moving, they can get up to contact. And as it says, from the front or side, screening from behind has a different requirement. We're supposed to allow them one normal step. I missed a big one last night. Gal came right up behind her. I was like, man, that's an illegal screen. And then by the time I processed it, it was too late and they'd turned the ball over. So sometimes those basketball gods help. And then a moving opponent needs time or distance to be able to stop or change direction. As we saw earlier, 2 steps is the maximum amount of distance we need to give them. And the screener must be stationary or moving in the same path and direction as the opponent. Sometimes you'll hear people screaming about moving screens, and the reason why they're moving is because that player's pushing them. So that's part of judging the whole screen situation too, is are they moving to maintain the screen or are they getting moved? And then there's the pick and roll versus the roll and pick. Right, in the screener, we see this a lot too, where the screener's got his feet 6 feet out wide. That is not a legal screen. A legal screen is about shoulder distance apart with the screen. And stay within their vertical plane, meaning their arms got to stay in there too. They can't be setting screens out here like this with their forearms out there. We do a lot of throw-ins, a lot of out-of-bounds play, so we need to make sure we understand throw-ins. We start the throw and count when the ball's at the disposal of the thrower. Either we've handed to them, bounced to them, or given them enough time after a made basket to be able to start their throw-in. The throw and count ends when the ball is released by the thrower. So you'll see those plays where you give them the ball and the officials got their arm up to chop it. The player will roll the ball on the floor and you stop your count, but you're running up the floor because you haven't started the game clock yet till somebody touches it, and then you'll chop the clock. But very important to know that once they release the ball, you stop your throw-in count. And the throw-in ends when it's touched by a player inbounds or out of bounds. If they touched it out of bounds, the throw-in ended, so that's where the violation is. The throw-in team commits a violation, like the thrower in steps on the court or takes more than 5 seconds or throws it out of bounds untouched. And this is important to know. A designated throw-in spot is 3 feet wide. 3 feet is the size of a lane space. So you want to know but 3 over the spot. So they could, move and step like this and move a little bit like this. As long as they keep 1 foot on or over that 3 foot wide spot, they're good to go. You can't travel on a throw-in. If they go outside that 3 foot lane, then it's just a throw-in violation. Just blow your whistle for a throw-in violation. But their feet can move all over the place in that designated spot.
Mike, is that after a make as well? Because back in the day on the make, you could go all the way.
Oh, right. That's run the end line throw-in that we'll talk about in a second here. And okay. Traveling and dribbling rules are not in effect during the throw-in. Oh, wasn't on there. Yeah, so after a made basket, they can throw it from anywhere along the end line still. Designated spot throwing is after a foul or a violation. Right, but yeah, if they make a basket, the team can throw it from anywhere along the end line. Traveling. This is this one's tough because of the levels that everybody watches the NBA and the NC2A, and their rules are different. They have different requirements, different terminology than we do. With high school basketball, it's all about the pivot foot and how you establish a pivot foot. If you catch the ball with both feet on the ground, either foot can be the pivot foot. Player dribbling or catching a ball while moving, if both feet are off the floor, they land on both feet just like before, either can be pivot foot. If they land first on one foot, then the other one lands. The first foot that hit is the pivot foot. If on one foot, the player can actually jump off that one foot and land on both feet simultaneously. Very important, simultaneously, as opposed to that's not simultaneously. At this point, they don't have a pivot foot. So if they started pivoting after they did this legal jump stop, it would actually be a travel. And then if they catch the ball or end their dribble with one foot on the floor, if the second foot touches the floor, the first foot's the pivot foot. Or the player can jump off that one foot, land on both feet simultaneously again. Neither foot can be a pivot foot then. Deep, huh?
And tough in the middle of game action to be able to grab those feet and know which one's the pivot foot.
Yeah, yeah, knowing when they entered their dribble, what's the position of the feet and which one's the pivot foot. And that in high school basketball, paramount to know which is the pivot foot in order to make correct traveling calls. You can lift the pivot foot, but not return it to the floor before the ball is released for a shot or a pass. It may not be lifted before the start of the dribble. Make sense? A player holding the ball can't touch the floor with any other part of the body except hand or foot. After gaining control while on the floor with other than the hand or foot, like diving for a loose ball, the player may not attempt to stand, to get up or stand, unless they started to dribble while they're laying on the floor, then they can, now they're dribbling and they can get up. Let me go back here. So one thing about gaining control while touching the floor, it's the fourth quarter, I'm sweating my body off and I dive for that loose ball and I get it and I slide 6 feet. What do we have?
Travel.
Nothing. You can slide as far as momentum takes you. That's all part of gaining control of the ball on the ground. So you can actually slide the length of the court if you could, as long as it's all that momentum from you hustling after the ball is what's causing you to slide.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
So if I play for a high school during the season, are we able to work so I can ref while playing for the season?
Yeah, I think you can do rec ball and things like that on the weekends. Just all okay. part of it will be what your availability will be.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Mike, I have a question as well.
Yes.
So just to go back to the player control after diving on the ball and then travel. So let's just say if I dive on the ball and momentum stops and I have the ball in my possession, can I then start dribbling?
Yep.
And then get up? Really? Okay.
Yep.
Even if the ball was not bouncing prior to me. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, it's, all this stuff was like, it was just like when I was learning this as a referee, it's like, no way. Okay, and while they're on their back, they can sit up to, make a pass. They don't have to lay on their back the whole time. They can sit up. And then the player cannot roll over. Again, rolling over, like getting away from somebody. If they're diving for the ball and they happen to roll some because of their momentum causing them to roll, all good. It's when they try to roll away after they've stopped sliding and it's not momentum, it's them rolling. Now we have a problem.
When are you going to start using LA?
Are players allowed to take 2 steps before dribbling, or is it just 1?
Traveling in high school does not involve steps. It involves the pivot foot. So it was that whole looking to determine which is the pivot foot. And once that pivot foot has been established, either they landed on one foot, then the other foot, that first foot that lands, the pivot foot. And if they lift that foot and replant it, that's a travel.
Well, Mike, his question had to do with before commencing dribbling.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is you're not allowed any steps before you commence dribbling. So you can lift your pivot foot off the ground to pass or shoot, but you can't lift it off the ground
and start a dribble. Right. So you can take steps. You can move that one foot all around that you want, as long as you don't lift up that pivot foot. But what I want to get you guys to focus on right off at the beginning is that traveling does not involve steps. It involves knowing and understanding what the pivot foot is, how it's established, and what they can do once the pivot foot's established.
Okay, thank you.
So that's rule 4. Do we want to try to run some clips off of rule 4?
Sure.
Let's see if I can.
Let me unshare. Let me stop share. Okay.
Yeah, I think I can already do that. And let's see.
Play 19.
So can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. You have a list up there.
Oh, but you can't see the VLC screen?
No.
All right, hang on a second.
I see 01 play 19 LGT.
Gotcha. Hang on one sec. Get myself organized here.
Okay, time to turn that off. You play 20 Minecraft. I need you to save and quit. I need you to please save and quit. Right.
What am I doing? All right. Now if I share the VLC screen. All right, so this is getting back to, so that's legal guarding position and block crash, right? Block charge. What do we have for a call there? Looks like the referee was calling a block. Oh, looks like he's calling a charge. I'm sorry, I missed that. We're going to see it again.
Okay. Finish that.
Black number 32 receives the ball.
We're looking at the white player and whether he gets 2 feet on the floor facing the black player.
In the post when white number 15 comes across the lane to contest his try for goal. Black number 32 makes illegal contact with white number 15, who is in legal guarding position. The lead official correctly rules a player control foul against black number 32. Remember to wave off the basket. The official does a good job by hustling to the reporting area and uses the appropriate signal.
I don't know. That kind of looks like a bad call. It looked like the dude, he already was moving backwards before the player even made contact.
If you think that's true,
he already was moving backwards. His momentum was moving backwards before the player ever even turned.
Does the Does the rule say that they can't be falling backwards?
Well, he was in position, but he never made contact. So if you is the call about the contact, or is it about being incorrect in the correct defensive position?
You said something different there. You said there was no contact. If there's no contact,
there was no contact. So how is it a charge?
Then that's different.
Or how is it?
Very much like
yes. So he was in good defensive position, but he was already moving back and no contact happened. So how is it a charge?
Those are two different things. Moving backwards is legal. He can move backwards, and if that contact is still in his chest and takes him down, that's a charge.
Are you seeing the clip again right in front of you?
No.
I want to see. I don't see it again. I would like to see.
Ah, dang it! What am I doing here?
So I'd have called the no call on that if you were.
Yeah, that's a bad. I would boo on that situation.
To be honest, it looked like he had on his own, and the guy had like was in front of him when it happened, but like he didn't touch him at all.
Yes, there was like absolutely no contact in that situation. I would have called nothing. I would have been let the play go on, because that right there, it wasn't like he ran into him. He was still. He had just turned around to gather his own position. So it was like he was already
matter. That part doesn't really matter. He's torso's facing the guy. If he turns into him, he's an illegal spot.
I'm looking closely now.
We got it now? All right.
I'm looking closely.
Slow this down. We can slow it down frame by frame if we need to. So
he has 1 foot. He's not so he's already right now, quote unquote, he's technically already in defensive position, even before the guy turned around.
So that's good, right?
That's all he needs to do.
He's in legal guarding position. You can argue whether that left foot is down yet or not, but it's close.
It's close enough. Okay. So then I want to see, yeah.
Well, and here, so that looks like a lot of contact right there. And if you also notice, it's not a big through the player. They talk about to and through a player, but the offensive guy continues to go forward into him.
He's flopping.
I don't necessarily disagree.
It looks like he pushed himself back more than he had to be.
So this is why when you're making those block charge calls, half the gym is going to hate you.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And that is judgment. And I agree that is a very marginal call. That could have gone.
I agree with the call.
I think that it makes sense, but at the same time, it just seems a little off.
All this stuff's happening so fast too. You got to take that in consideration as well.
Oh, absolutely, it's easy.
The thing that I don't necessarily like about this call, actually, two things. The lead is kind of stacked on this play, so he's making a lot of assumptions. The other thing I don't like is we don't cut through the key to go to the reporting area. We go around players to go to report our fouls. We don't usually cut right through the middle of them.
Play 2. Who initiates the contact on this play?
Number 14.
Let's see that again.
15 in blue is dribbling into the lane.
It looks like number 15 had pushed her with her shoulder.
On the dribbler. When secondary defender number 44 steps up to double team the dribbler. Contact occurs on the torso of number 34 White, knocking her to the floor. Who initiated the contact? Was the defender successful in maintaining legal guarding position?
The defender in white on the inside of the paint made the initial contact that pushed her into the other.
Yeah, 44.
Yeah, the one who went to the ground. No, if you watch, so you got the girl who's off to the side over there. You got big girl 44 standing there. She's in a good spot. It's the girl to the side who kind of bumps her.
Number 34 in white is attempting to maintain legal guarding position on the
dribble. She got crossed up. She couldn't get back.
And secondary defender number 44 steps up to double team the dribbler.
Right there, do you think the white player's in legal guarding position?
Not at all.
Why not?
Because she is the number 14 is not in legal guarding position. She's next to her, so she's still technically guarding her, but she's already passed up.
Is she?
No, she's
facing
already
her?
she's facing her, but she's facing her from behind. She's
let's
already passed.
There's actually, that's a great comment. In basketball, in order for a player to be considered past that player, they need to have their head and shoulders past her, or her head and shoulders past her.
From this angle, we can't see,
like
but I'm
it
sure
looks
if we
they're
were
on the same
parallel,
level.
yeah, I feel like if we were, I don't know, she's already passed because she's already in running position. So she went from defensive position into running beside her. So she's in the process of losing position.
So process of losing means she hasn't lost it yet. Technically,
not
right
yet.
Now, she's
So
still
far,
the next step she
she's
will.
legal.
She is
Yeah.
legal.
And
she's in legal guarding
and then the
position
judgment
now.
is going to be whether or not she moves forward as opposed to laterally or obliquely.
Right. And
Right?
I think what you're
she-
going to see is her belly actually comes up and kind of shoves the player in blue right as they're getting right.
I
Right,
personally think
that's
this is
a foul right
I
there.
personally think this is an offensive foul. I think she was legal the whole time.
34 White, knocking her to the floor.
She got crossed.
Yeah.
She got crossed and left, and she put her body on her in the paint.
Well, I think he called the foul. Who did he call the foul on?
Is successful in maintaining legal guarding
Yeah,
position.
she got her at the last second right there.
That's a no.
I want to see.
She hit her with her pelvic body. She pushed her into the number 44 with her pelvic.
That's what I see too.
That's a no call as far as I'm concerned.
Right?
They should have just let that go.
I wouldn't
She's
have
already
called
been stopped
nothing
by
either.
44.
It looks like 44 had pushed, like, caused her to fall.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
Good
there's
discussion,
44,
right?
44, just a brick wall.
No, it's awesome.
It's what they make judgments for.
yeah.
Girl couldn't handle being crossed.
It was easy. Anybody.
She got crossed and pushed the girl into number 44.
And I think
I'm
that's what
going to get off of legal guarding position because we now have learned how difficult determining what legal guarding position is
and maintaining
it.
And maintaining.
Can you guys see this hand checking? You got the screen for hand checking right now. Play 21.
Play 21.
That looks like a reach.
What do we think?
And there's no such call as a reach.
Or
it's a hand check or illegal use of the hands.
Can you show that?
He grabbed his wrist like twice, so I don't know if you can grab wrist, but he grabbed his wrist on 2 occasions. He went over the wrist and then under the wrist. I think that was some sort of something.
That would be holding. Then
there's one touch.
Yeah, holding.
There's another touch.
There's all over the wrist
and the legs.
That's a foul right there.
That's all fouls.
Hand check.
And this is almost one of those things where look how close the official was to all of it. Sometimes you're so close you can't see it.
There needs to be another hand play as number 1 is clearly fouled. This could also lead to rough play if not ruled.
Exactly. You need to make those calls.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had a question.
Somebody had a question?
So just to confirm, the offense and defense player, neither one can make contact. So if the offensive player is throwing the hands up, at the defensive player, you can call a foul on the offensive player, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand that correctly.
There's illegal contact can be made by any player, including the ball handler, dribbler. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to do a screenplay here.
So would you have made that call an illegal contact or a block?
I'd have called illegal contact.
Illegal contact, okay.
In your first year of refereeing, we're going to be applauding the fact that you are got your fist up in the air and you're blowing the whistle. And don't get too worried about whether it's a block or a hit or a, it's not that won't be important as you continue to get better, but the first year is if you can recognize a foul and call it, we're good.
No screen.
I love it.
Legal.
That looked like a good screen to me.
Except for the last one with the bows.
Yes,
but
this is a good example of the player in white setting a legal screen. The player
no.
She was there. She was right there. The girl defender wasn't looking. she
That's
got
what
caught.
the guy is saying. That's what
A correct
Corcado is
ruling by the
telling you, is
official.
that this is a legal screen.
Well,
Right.
she's got to protect herself too a little bit. Yeah.
Time and distance, right? And no more than
He'd
2
been standing
steps.
there for a while.
Clearly had that, right? So good
no call.
a good no call.
Yep.
Play 10. Is this a legal screen?
No, we just did that.
This is fun.
Ran right through that though.
Them screens that hurt.
It was the same game. They must have had a great time in this game. Did he travel? You only get one shot at it live.
Yeah.
Oh, we need that back. We need that
No, you
back.
can't get it back. You only get one chance.
He had two. He took 2 steps.
Yeah.
He took 2 steps, and he made initial pivot foot with his right foot when he picked the ball up, and he made the 2 steps and he released it. He just went towards the left part of the lane, but he released it off of his right pivot foot. So
Travel.
if I had to call it, I would say that is not a travel.
So why are you talking about steps? Mike just talked a little while ago about
Because
steps.
because I did. You're right. When he picked the ball up, he created his pivot foot to be
With
his
his
right
right
foot
foot.
because that's
Right.
and so because he created his pivot foot to be his right foot, he then took when we said steps. So I don't know if you said it doesn't matter. So if he picked up the ball, and you said you have your pivot foot was his right foot.
So
He took his first step with his left.
You actually described it quite well. As you said, when he stopped the dribble, his right foot was on the ground. He did a step, and then you said he put his right foot back on the ground and shot a shot, right? So he shot off of his right foot, is what you said?
When he picked the ball up, his right foot was on the ground. He took one step.
Right.
Oh, and so he jumped off of his left foot. So his left foot was not his pivot foot. So he took a jump off of his opposite foot.
Because that's not what you said before. You said he shot.
That is
off
not
of
what
his
I
right.
said. Yeah, I
Let's see it
didn't
again.
mean that. I meant
And if
his
that's
right
what
foot was
you
in the
thought
air.
you saw, then that's actually a good ruling. You saw the pivot foot be the right foot, and you saw him shoot off the left foot and not replant the pivot foot, and that's all good.
Right.
But
Now,
I want to see
that's
now
actually what you saw,
but I think he jumped off his right foot. But I'm pretty sure his right foot was in the air. But let's see again.
Number 10 in red recovers a loose ball and dribbles the length of the court. He ends the dribble and jumps off his left foot.
Gathered right there, right?
Gathered. So his left. So his left foot is that now considered his pivot foot? But because right when he picked the ball up, so his left foot. So he did okay.
Actually,
so he
not
did
yet.
travel then.
Hold on, it's not considered the pivot foot yet.
So his right foot is the pivot foot.
No,
right.
Once his right foot hit the ground, that made his left foot the pivot foot. Because remember, he could actually jump off that one foot and land on both feet simultaneously, and he'd still be legal. But in this case, because he went left, right, his left foot became his pivot foot. Now he just replanted.
So he's jumped. So now can he jump off of his left foot?
No, that's the travel right there.
That's called a Euro everywhere else.
Well, okay, can we see it one more time? Because he gathered, he lifted he had his right foot in the air.
With his left foot on the floor. So if his left foot is on the floor when he ended the dribble, that makes his left foot the pivot foot when he stepped with his right foot. In high school, this is a travel.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, 1 second. So
right there.
He picked it up. His left foot is now on the ground.
And there's his left foot again as he's shooting it.
I have a question. That's
hard.
If you run it back, I can't tell if his left foot and the ball hit the ground at the same time. If it did, does that count as a step or no?
There's nothing about steps. It's always about what the pivot foot is.
Okay.
But it would be easier to see it from the front.
Did you see that the ball and the ball and his foot hit the ground at the same time?
The ball's in his hand right now, right? And his foot's on the ground.
But the ball also looked like it could be in the white could also have his right hand on the ball as well.
Doesn't matter. The players ended.
So what if the defender was holding the ball at that time.
Finish it up. If the defender continued to hold the ball in this, then right, but that's not what happens here.
Then he goes to the right, then he goes to the left, and he's jumping off the left. So that is a travel.
No Euros in high school.
No.
Wow,
Well,
Euros can absolutely happen in high school, but you have to do it at the right time. You can't do it with a foot on the floor. You have to have done it, ended your dribble with both feet off the floor. Then you do the one step, then the next step, and go up.
Yep. All right, we got one more clip, and then we're running a little late here, and then we're going to try to blow through rule 1 and 2 pretty quickly. We'll do a traveling play.
26. Is this a legal play?
Our favorite move. What do you think?
No, that's not a travel.
Sorry,
No,
I
I don't
totally
think it's a
missed
travel.
it.
I'll start at the beginning again.
6. Is this a
Tell
legal
me what the pivot foot is.
The left.
It'd be the right, right?
It would be right.
Left.
It was a travel. It was his right foot.
He
It
picked up his, he spun in with his left foot. So his
Right
left
foot
foot
should be
was his pivot foot.
his right, he's dribbling with his right and he's spinning to the
Not yet. So right now he's holding
The left.
the dribble, and see the circle. It's around his left foot. That left foot is his pivot foot right now, because one foot is on the
Yes.
floor, one foot's off, and he's ended the
Takes
dribble.
a step with the right foot, establishing the left foot as the pivot foot. He proceeds to lift the left foot
Oh, that's a travel.
and places it back on the floor before attempting a try for goal.
Hey.
Trust me,
Definitely.
when I tell you that when you blow the whistle in the gym and call it spin move travel, I actually think most of the players on the defensive, the parents of the players on the defensive team don't even like it when you make that call. But it is an unpopular call because, as Mike said, in college and in pros, it's a legal play oftentimes. And in high school, 99 times out of 100, the kid is traveling.
And again, it's all about when what they're doing with the ball when they end their dribble and what the position of their feet are at the time.
That's a tough one. I don't know.
Yeah, because
If you watch enough
spin.
of these, it actually becomes clearer. The more
It was a
clips you
common
see, the
occurrence
more
in our game.
plays like this.
Officials need to make a concentrated effort to pick up the pivot foot on these plays. This illegal maneuver is often executed in the lane area and leads to high percentage shots.
But I think mostly because he drug his foot. But if he would have jumped off of both feet, would that have still been? Would that have been a travel if he didn't drag his left foot?
What he could have done instead of spinning like he did, he could have pushed off that left foot and landed on both feet. Going in both feet simultaneously and go up.
I have a question. Are people allowed to ask to switch refs ever?
No.
They can always ask.
Okay, just wondering because I don't know. So we were playing a game today, and we noticed at least like 20 points worth of like 1,000 travels weren't getting called out by the same ref.
We're gonna convert you into being a ref fan as opposed to a ref critic.
Well, I don't hate refs.
Are you a coach? Are you a coach or a player?
I'm a player. Like, okay,
Right.
I wasn't
So,
like,
hold on.
I wasn't mad at the ref. I just was like thinking, because I saw this kid like take 3 steps and he didn't get called out.
It happens, especially in 2-person games. Was this the varsity or lower level?
It was JV.
Right. So 2-person is tough officiating, and you're going to learn that because that's what you get to do first. But I would always say, that's more for your coaches and administrators to worry about referees. You as a player, just respect the official. If he calls a foul on you and you don't know what it was, go politely ask him what I do wrong, what could I do better, that kind of stuff. It always frustrates me as an official to call a travel on the player, and the player goes to his coach like, I'm like, why don't you ask me what you did? I'll tell you. So if you as a player are respectful, you can usually ask an official a question and he'll try to answer it. Now, if you go up to him and say, didn't you see that kid take 3 steps over there? That might get you a little different response. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
I didn't call it out on the kid. I was just like wondering. That's why I didn't call him out at all for it.
The referee, you mean?
Yeah, I didn't say anything about it. I was just like hoping the ref would say something.
Let's move on. Just before we go to rule 1 and 2, because I do want to get through them really quickly, because you're going to end up having quizzes on 1, 2, and 4 here to prepare for next week. Hey, I have an iPhone that says a Dreams iPhone, and you've been talking a lot. What's your name? And you're muted right now, a Dream, or whoever you are.
Yeah, no, my name is a Dream.
It is a Dream. So we don't have you. What's your last name?
Dream Alvarado.
You know what? We have it. I've got you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Yes. Hey, Mike, you want to put up? Now we have a face with the name. Perfect. If you want, Mike, I can rattle through it as you kind of.
Okay, go ahead.
So rule 1, as a first-year official, I would not get very bogged down on this rule. We're going to have some questions for you in the quiz concept. I hit on the points of what you kind of really need to know out of rule 1 in your first year. The ball, right? That's what we play with. And just know that there's a different size ball for the girls' game versus the boys' game, and oftentimes a youth game. So the girls use a smaller size ball. That circumference will be stamped on the ball. It'll say 28.5 on it. And the boys' ball, which is 29.5, often will not have a stamp on it, will not show a circumference on it. So make sure you're using the right ball, depending upon which game you're refereeing. Team bench, the location where the coach.
Real quick, one more ball thing. The test isn't to throw it up high and have it bounce and stick your elbow out and see how high it bounces. There's an actual measurement that's out there. Drop it from 6 feet as measured from the bottom of the ball. You drop it and it bounces up to like 49 to 54 inches. So know that it's just not sticking your elbow out and watching the ball bounce. There's an actual how much bounce it's supposed to have.
And we would all recommend a less bouncy ball than a more bouncy ball. Easier for the players to control. The rebounds don't go as far out. It makes it for a little more controllable game. Kind of know where the coaches are supposed to be standing. They're able to stand between the end line and up to 28 feet out up the sideline, as opposed to standing at half court or over half court, where they're trying to either talk to their players or yell at you. So that's an important piece to know about the location of where the team bench is and where the coach's box is. And then the third thing is, the X where the players are supposed to check into the game. You won't have this in your middle school games. You won't have this probably in your JV games, and you definitely won't have them in your rec games, but essentially know that where the X is, which is supposed to be in front of the scorer, is where the players are supposed to check into the game.
Not just run in off the bench.
Not just running off the bench, or even kneeling down right next to the bench where you're likely to miss them. That's it for rule 1. You're going to have more questions in the quiz that you'll end up having to get in the rule book. But if you got to process rules in your first year, process rule 4, process rule 1 well after you've processed rule 4 and rule 9 and rule 10. So rule 2 is officials and their duties. What are their?
You have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Leighton. Oh, you said you disconnected.
No, Michael.
Yeah, I was just saying sorry that I disconnected.
Sorry. We got somebody else?
Oh, I had a hand up, now it's down. Okay, good.
Okay. What are the officials' additional duties besides refereeing the ball game? I'm emphasizing sportsmanship and conduct, right? So back up the. Get back there. It's up to us to penalize the conduct of the players and the bench and the coaches, right? and it's up to game management to take care of the spectators. We don't want our officials to be engaging with spectators who are yelling at us and yelling back at them, or telling the spectator that they need to leave the gym. We want our officials to work with game management to make sure that those spectators are taken care of and removed if they need to be removed. We should not be doing that directly. But more and more, one of the common complaints about people as to why they don't continue to officiate is unsporting conduct by either players. In order of them happening, it's probably fans, coaches, and players. The players are usually the easiest people to deal with. They're kids. They're out there wanting to play ball. If they actually get mad at you, it's kind of, it's immature outbursts. Then come the coaches, who hopefully have a little bit of control because they're supposed to be leaders of their players. And then finally, it's the fans in the stands who are normally the worst. And if you need help with that, you want to grab game management to be able to do that.
What do you mean?
Really important. And it really makes your experience better as a referee.
Can you say more about what that might look like? Just coming from California, where there's a little less tolerance for spectator behavior. I've noticed here it's a little maybe more tolerant. And I wasn't clear. Is it for like officials to take time to talk to game management during these issues, or what sort of
the ideal would be that game management is on top of it before the officials even have to get involved, that they're actually paying attention to what's going on in the stands. But I'll call that, a pipe dream, perhaps, right? And again, depending upon if you're doing rec games and there's 3 different games going on in the gym manager isn't necessarily paying attention to your game. If you're doing a middle school game, many times that gym manager is kind of the coach of one of the teams, and you kind of need to deal with him or her as your help during the game. If you're doing a JV game, there should be a gym manager there at the high school level that you can go to and ask for help if you need to. I just had a game the other night where I literally threw a spectator out with 30 seconds left to go in the game, because he was berating the officials. He was getting involved in the team huddle. He was just not being respectful of the game. And the gym manager was standing right there on the end line, right near me. And I just turned around and looked at him, and I said, that you need to take care of that spectator. He needs to leave the gym. And then my partners and I just kind of walked over to the other side of the floor and waited for it to happen. Without getting involved with them. But really, really important to try to make sure that the game stays under control and you are not subjecting yourself to unacceptable behavior by any of the participants. 2.9 talks about signals. You're going to be doing this on the court with Kelly, but review them in terms of, what the signals are. The signals themselves are in the back of the rule book, and they're also in your mechanics book, but what the signals represent. And then 2.10 is correctable errors. I put this in, and it's kind of knowing it your first year. The first thing I would say about correctable errors is try really hard not to have them, to make it kind of easier, because I remember being intimidated by the concept in my first few years. But correctable errors, know what errors that can be fixed and when they can be fixed. And mostly it has to do with either not awarding free throws when they should be happening, or awarding free throws when they shouldn't be happening. And then the last thing is, counting a score which shouldn't have counted, or not counting a score which should have counted. And oftentimes that has to do with a 2-point shot versus a 3-point shot. But so it's, I goofed. I didn't have a team shooting 1-on-1 when they should have, or the bench didn't, the table didn't tell me about it. Or we shot free throws that we shouldn't have shot. Essentially those are the correctable errors, and know when you can correct an error. And this chart helps you with that. It shows that there's a dead ball. The error occurs at point A when the ball is still dead.
We should have shot 1-on-1 and we didn't.
Right. We should have shot 1-on-1 and we didn't. We put the ball in play. The clock starts. Say the ball becomes dead again after a made basket or the ball went out of bounds. And then right up to the point before that ball is becoming live again is when we correct the error. So there was a ball, the clock had stopped, the ball was dead. We put the ball in play, the clock starts, the ball becomes dead again. The table says, ooh, we should have had free throws there. We're still good because we haven't had a second live ball at that point in time. And we were able to correct the error. You've just heard this, your head is spinning with this concept. As I said, what I took away from my first year is I'm going to try really darn hard to not end up having a correctable error because I was really worried about being able to actually execute. So spend some time with it. It'll be a little challenging for you in your first year. There's no doubt about it. It's a challenging concept to people in their 10th year. So, just know that that's something that you might want to spend a little time in when you're reviewing Rule 2. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything further than that, right?
That's it.
So in answer to somebody's question, class ends in like now, unless anybody's got additional questions that they'd like to address.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to miss you here for a second, but there's quizzes, and I'll send out a reminder tomorrow morning. Quizzes on Rule 1, 2, and 4, which we'll review next Thursday at the start of the class. But get them in, get to them and get them in, and we'll have recorded, and we'll focus on the most missed questions out of that at the beginning of the class next time.
Are you going to email us those quizzes, or are they already?
They're online, but I'll send a note out with the directions on how to access them.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody taking the time to come out and listen and learn and share. That was all good.
Good stuff.
Definitely. Thanks, those replays were like so hard. I look forward to the real thing and missing it. But thank you for that.
And those clips are available online as well on the Apprentice website. So you can go back and look at them if you choose to do so.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.